Pumpkins by Linda White, illustrated by Megan Lloyd. Every year at springtime, Rebecca Estelle planted just enough seeds in her garden to grow vegetables for the long winter. She planted carrots and beans, tomatoes and peas, corn and rutabagas. She grew a little bit of everything, except pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle hated pumpkins. When she was a little girl, money had been scarce. For an entire month, all there had been to eat were pumpkins. Baked pumpkins, steamed pumpkins, boiled pumpkins, stewed pumpkins, mashed pumpkins, rotten pumpkins, breakfast pumpkins, lunch pumpkins, dinner pumpkins. Enough pumpkins! When things finally improved and there was more money to buy food, Rebecca Estelle decided she would never eat pumpkins again, or even look at one. Not ever. And she didn't until one autumn day, long after Rebecca Estelle's hair had turned snowy white. She was raking the leaves that fell each fall from her black walnut tree, and her cat, Esmeralda, was scattering them just as quickly. All of a sudden, the pumpkin truck passed by. Oh, she heard it coming, and she knew what it was. It rumbled by at harvest time every year. She turned her back and concentrated on picking up the last fallen leaf. She managed to ignore the truck until... Splat! An enormous pumpkin tumbled off the truck and smashed into slimy orange smithereens all over the edge of her yard. "Come back here and get this pumpkin!" she yelled, but the driver sped away. "Well, I won't touch it," Rebecca Estelle insisted, getting her shovel from the barn. "And I won't look at it," she added as she shoveled dirt on top of the pumpkin pieces. "I won't think about the pumpkin ever again," she declared. And she didn't. Until spring, when Rebecca Estelle was admiring the new sprouts in her garden. She noticed Esmeralda playing in some big green leaves growing at the edge of the yard. "How curious," she said, going over to inspect them. "I didn't plant anything there." Then Rebecca Estelle remembered the pumpkin truck and the slimy pumpkin smithereens. "Pumpkins!" she cried in disgust. "Come out of there, Esmeralda. I will not water those plants. I will not tend them. I will ignore them and they will die." She picked up Esmeralda and stomped inside. But a week later, when Rebecca Estelle peered out her window, she saw that the vines had grown. She tramped to the barn, got her garden tools, and went to work on the pumpkin vines. She cut and dug until not one was left growing. "There, now there will be no pumpkins." She smiled and went back inside. But the next week, when she was weeding her garden, she noticed that the pumpkin vines had grown back. Rebecca Estelle marched inside and snapped the curtains shut. "The only thing to do is ignore them. They won't grow if I don't take care of them," she muttered. So, rain or shine, all spring and summer, she never looked out the front window. She used only the back door and never even glanced towards the vines. Neither did Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle ignored the vines so well, in time she forgot why she wasn't using the front door. Until one autumn day when she and Esmeralda went to rake the leaves that fell each fall from the black walnut tree in front of the house. "Pumpkins!" Rebecca Estelle shrieked. Pumpkin vines had twined under the bushes, over the bird bath, through the porch railings, and onto the rocking chair. The entire yard was a sea of plump, round pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle could no longer ignore them. She plopped down on the pumpkin nearest her, putting her hands over her face. "Whatever will I do, Esmeralda?" she cried. "How will I get rid of this many pumpkins?" She thought and she thought. Her mind went back to all the pumpkins she had eaten as a young girl, when pumpkins were the only food her family had. "Well, we can't let them stay here," she told Esmeralda. "Some people might need these pumpkins, and I suppose there are folks crazy enough to like them. We'll give them away." She marched off to get her wheelbarrow. Rebecca Estelle struggled to lift the first pumpkin, then the second and the third. She huffed and she puffed as she wheeled the loaded wheelbarrow into the lane. "I'm too tired to deliver these heavy pumpkins now," Rebecca Estelle grumbled. She mopped her brow with her apron and wondered what to do next. "Perhaps if I make them into pies, they will be easier to deliver. Such a nuisance." So she went to work. She scooped the slimy seeds out of the pumpkins and cut away the shells. After she boiled the pumpkin meat, she mixed it with eggs, milk, sugar, flour, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves to make rich pies. Then Rebecca Estelle made pumpkin tarts, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cakes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding, pumpkin cookies, until pumpkin dishes spilled out of every cupboard, drawer, and cubbyhole, and the seeds were a mountain in the corner. "Well, that's the first batch," Rebecca Estelle said, dusting her floury hands. "Now to deliver them." She put the wheelbarrow outside the kitchen door, then loaded it with pumpkin treats. When it was full, just the thought of delivering all those pumpkin dishes made Rebecca Estelle tired. "If only people would come get them," she said. Then she had an idea. Rebecca Estelle whirled around and hurried back into the house for a kitchen knife. "This should get people to come," Rebecca Estelle cried. She took her knife and sat in the middle of the pumpkin patch. She carved a smiling face on a nice round pumpkin, a scary snaggletooth face on a tall thin pumpkin, and Boo on a short squat pumpkin. She was so busy carving pumpkins, she hardly noticed how dark it was getting. When she could no longer see, she went to the shelf on the back porch and got the sack of candles she kept for emergencies. "If this doesn't get people to come here, we'll have to deliver them all ourselves," she muttered to Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle peered into the darkness for a long time. She didn't see anything. Still, she watched until finally she saw a light. Faint at first, then brighter, and then more lights bobbing through the night. "Here they come," she shouted. "Esmeralda, let's heat some apple cider." Young and old, everyone in town came. "Rebecca Estelle, we thought you hated pumpkins," they said. "We saw your jack-o'-lanterns from the end of the road and came for a closer look." "I was hoping you would," said Rebecca Estelle. "Where did you ever find all these pumpkins?" people asked. "I came by them quite by accident," Rebecca Estelle said, smiling. "Would you like some pumpkin pie? There's plenty." She winked at Esmeralda. Everyone enjoyed the pumpkin pie and cider and had a good time. So did Rebecca Estelle. And when they were ready to go home, she made sure each carried a jack-o'-lantern, a bag of seeds for roasting, and a pumpkin treat. Rebecca Estelle gave away everything that reminded her of the pumpkins she had always hated, until all that remained was a handful of seeds. Those she tucked snugly into her pocket, where they would be safe until planting time next spring. How Many Seeds in a Pumpkin by Margaret McNamara and G. Brian Karras. Charlie liked school. He liked his teacher, Mr. Tiffin. He liked his best friend, Alex. But he did not like lining up to go into school. Mr. Tiffin's class lined up by size, tallest to smallest, or smallest to tallest. Charlie was the smallest in the class, every time. One chilly fall morning, Charlie was surprised to see 3 bright orange pumpkins on Mr. Tiffin's desk. One pumpkin was big, one was medium, and one was small. "How many seeds in a pumpkin?" Mr. Tiffin asked the class. "Does anybody know?" Nobody knew, but everybody had ideas. "The biggest one has the most," said Robert. "I bet it has 1,000,000 seeds." Robert was the tallest boy in the class. "The medium one has 500, Eleanor said. Eleanor always sounded as if she knew exactly what she was talking about. "The tiny one has 22, said Anna. Anna liked even numbers better than odd ones. Mr. Tiffin wrote down all the guesses on the blackboard. Charlie was very quiet. "What are you thinking, Charlie?" asked Mr. Tiffin. "I'm thinking that all the best guesses are taken," Charlie said. "Why don't we open these pumpkins up and see?" said Mr. Tiffin. The next day, the kids in Mr. Tiffin's class brought in spoons for scooping and bowls for holding and plastic bags for throwing out. They covered the floor with newspaper. They put on their smocks. "It's a messy business counting pumpkin seeds," said Mr. Tiffin, but the class was ready. After Mr. Tiffin cut a circle around each pumpkin stem, Kimmy, Alex, and Jake pulled off the caps. The children peered inside. This big one definitely has the most, said Robert. We'll see, said Mr. Tiffin. The pumpkin pulp was slimy and stringy, and the seeds were hard to get out. When the children were finished, there were 3 empty pumpkins, 3 full bowls, and 20 messy hands. Tomorrow we will find out the answer to our question, said Mr. Tiffin. Tonight, your homework is to think about how we should count all the seeds. That afternoon, Mr. Tiffin dried the seeds. The next day, he put them in 3 paper bags marked big, medium, small. Did you do your thinking homework? He asked the class. Yes, Alex said. I think we should just guess. I think we should count very, very carefully, said Tara. I think we should count by 2s, 5s, and 10s, said Molly. The class agreed that Molly had a good idea. Robert, Kimmy, and Jake all wanted to count the seeds in the big pumpkin by 2s. Anna asked if she could join them. We can be the 2s club, she said. They practiced counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, they said together. Jeremy, Tara, Eleanor, Molly, and Alex liked counting by 5s. We'll count the seeds in the medium pumpkin, said Molly. We can be the 5s club. 5, 10, 15, 20, they cheered. I'll take the smallest pumpkin, said Charlie. I guess I'll be in the 10s club. Good idea, said Mr. Tiffin. 10, 20, 30, Charlie began. Soon there were many groups of seeds in front of each pumpkin. The 2s Club. See, said Robert, the 2s Club has the most. They had 170 pairs of seeds. The 5s Club. We have lots too, said Eleanor. They had 63 groups of 5 seeds and 1 seed left over. The 10s Club. Charlie had exactly 35 groups of 10 seeds. Robert looked at the seeds in front of Charlie. You don't have a whole lot, he said. Let's get counting, said Mr. Tiffin. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, began Robert, Kimmy, Jake, and Anna. It took a long time to count 170 pairs of seeds. My brain hurts, said Anna. The biggest pumpkin had 340 seeds. Almost a million, said Jake. The 5s were a little easier. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, chanted Jeremy, Tara, Eleanor, and Molly. There were 316 seeds in the medium pumpkin. Too bad for you, said Robert. It's not a contest, said Molly. The 10s were the fastest of all, since there were just 35 groups. 10, 20, 30, 40. Charlie counted to himself. This can't be right, he said. What can't be right? Asked Mr. Tiffin. There are 350 seeds in my little pumpkin, said Charlie. That means it has the most of all. So it does, said Mr. Tiffin. Congratulations, Charlie, said Alex. The 10s Club wins. It's not a contest, said Robert. Mr. Tiffin told the class to gather around. You can never tell just how many seeds are in a pumpkin until you open it up, he said. But there may be some clues. Take a good look at these. The class did. Charlie's is darker orange, said Anna. And it has more lines on the outside, said Robert. Yep, said Mr. Tiffin. For each line on the outside, there is a row of seeds on the inside. That's good to know, said Eleanor. And the longer the pumpkin grows, the more lines it gets, he added. Its skin gets darker too. So even though my pumpkin was the smallest, it was on the vine the longest, said Charlie. Exactly, agreed Mr. Tiffin. When it was time to go home, the class lined up by the door. Smallest to tallest this time, said Mr. Tiffin. Robert was at the back. Eleanor was in the middle. Charlie was at the front. Small things can have a lot going on inside them, Charlie said to Mr. Tiffin. And then they left the classroom, with Charlie leading the way. Charlie's Pumpkin Facts. Pumpkin seeds are small but powerful. A whole huge pumpkin grows from a tiny seed. 2. You can eat pumpkin seeds if you want, but you should ask somebody to roast them first. They contain lots of vitamin A. 3. If you plant pumpkin seeds, do it after the ground warms up in spring. You'll need a lot of space for them to grow. Pumpkins grow on vines. 4. It takes about 4 months for a pumpkin to grow to full size. So, plant your seeds by June if you want a pumpkin for Halloween. 5. Is a pumpkin a vegetable? No, it's a fruit. 6. Some pumpkins are small. I like those. Some pumpkins are really, really big. Usually, big pumpkins don't taste very good. Small, sweet pumpkins are the kind you should use to make a pumpkin pie. 7. Counting by 2s and 5s and 10s makes counting go faster. That's not really a pumpkin fact, but it's true. A note from Mr. Tiffin. I looked pretty carefully for those 3 pumpkins so that Charlie, Robert, Anna, and the other students would not be able to predict what was inside. Pollination, pumpkin variety, and time on the vine determine how many lines are on a pumpkin and how many seeds are inside. Size alone is not the most important thing, which worked out great for Charlie. Little Orange Pumpkin. Words by Erin Gwendelsberger. Pictures by Jennifer Zivoyne. At the end of a neighborhood street sat an old house with a cozy porch. Outside the house, the wind blew whoosh, and colors lit up the other houses, purples, oranges, and greens. But on the porch, a little pumpkin was filled with excitement. Tonight was the night. Halloween. Little Orange Pumpkin had been waiting all year for this night. She was excited to collect candy, to see everything creepy and scary lurking around the neighborhood, and then to read spooky Halloween books with her parents for one final scare of the night. "Mommy, Daddy," said little Pumpkin, "is it time? Is it time? Is it time?" "Almost," Mommy said, smiling. "But first, let's go over the Halloween rules. Number 1, remember to say please and thank you. Number 2, said Daddy in his deep voice, no eating candy until Mommy and Daddy say it's okay. Number 3, said Mommy and Daddy together. Stay close to us. Little Pumpkin's face dropped from a smile to a frown. But I want to go out by myself, she said. I'm a big pumpkin. I can trick or treat on my own. I'm sorry, said Mommy. You're too young to go by yourself. Your mommy is right, said Daddy. It's too dangerous for a little pumpkin all alone. Little Pumpkin twisted her stem, rolled from side to side, and said, No, I want to go by myself. I see that you're upset, said Daddy, but we'll have fun together. No, no, no! Little Pumpkin shouted. I will not go with you. Little Pumpkin rolled hard to the left and fell off the porch, sending a spray of pebbles flying through the air when she landed with a thump. She rolled again in frustration, leaves flinging. Little Pumpkin, Mommy said, we do not fling rocks. Little Pumpkin rolled hard to the right and sent more rocks flying. Little Pumpkin, said Daddy, with a warning in his voice. Little Pumpkin rolled left and right and sent little rocks flying every which way. They scattered all over the front yard and the porch. Okay, Little Pumpkin, Mommy said. I think it's time for you to visit your quiet corner. I don't want to visit my quiet corner, shouted Little Pumpkin. I want to trick or treat. Young lady, Daddy said, please go to your quiet corner now. Little Pumpkin huffed and puffed and thumped loudly toward her quiet corner. Little Pumpkin huffed and puffed some more. She turned around to give her parents a reproachful look, and that was when she saw a warm orange light that glowed bright in the narrow space under the porch. Little Pumpkin was sure that she'd never seen that light before, and she was curious to find out what it was. Little Pumpkin found a hole in the ground. She couldn't see what was at the bottom, so she leaned forward a bit more and a bit more when suddenly she fell down and landed on a small wooden door. What was this? Should she tell her parents about it? Or should she check it out on her own? Yes, that's what she would do. Little Pumpkin opened the door. Little Pumpkin found herself coming out of a large oak tree. Then she turned around and saw a dreary, dark, and spooky-looking house. She wasn't sure exactly where she was, but she couldn't wait to explore. She rolled up to the door, gently knocked, and it creaked open. Welcome to the haunted manor, said the monster in a deep, gravelly voice. My name is Gerard. Would you like a tour? For a monster so big, Gerard was certainly polite. He also reminded her somehow of her daddy. Yes, please, said Little Pumpkin. Thank you. She remembered the first rule of Halloween was to say please and thank you. This way, said Gerard, leading down the hall. First, let us visit Skeleton Alley. A cold chill ran down Little Pumpkin's back when she rolled into Skeleton Alley, but she quickly forgot about it when she saw all the bright neon colors and the many different skeletons doing all sorts of interesting things. Wow, said Little Pumpkin, rolling over to the bowling game. Can I try? Of course, stuttered one of the skeletons, whose teeth were rattling at the rhythmic sound of the music. I wasn't afraid of those skeletons at all, said Little Pumpkin, when she and Gerard left Skeleton Alley. I am a big pumpkin. Very good, said Gerard. Let us then try Goblin Gazebo. Perhaps that will give you the spook you seek. A tiny flutter ran through Little Pumpkin's chest when she rolled into Goblin Gazebo, but she quickly forgot about it when she saw the ghastly-looking goblins doing fantastic ghoulish things. Fun, said Little Pumpkin, rolling over to the sandbox. May I try? Why not? Growled the goblins, handing her a shovel. I am independent, said Little Pumpkin, as she and Gerard left the gazebo. I wasn't a bit afraid of those goblins. Gerard showed Little Pumpkin Ghost Gallery, where ghosts of all shapes and sizes were floating around covered in paint that dripped all over the floor as they chased each other, playing and making funny ghostly noises. They visited the candy cauldron, where witches were making the craziest candy Little Pumpkin had ever set her eyes on. She didn't take any candy because she remembered rule number 2 of Halloween. No eating candy until Mommy and Daddy say it's okay. But she was tempted when a witch who looked a little like her mommy offered her a maple chocolate cluster, her favorite. Little Pumpkin's heart may have beat a bit faster here, and her pulse may have quickened its pace there, but she didn't feel afraid, not really. With Gerard as her guide, she was having too much fun. Little Pumpkin and Gerard heard booming laughter coming from behind a double door at the end of a long hallway. Suddenly, they found themselves in a movie theater that smelled like buttered popcorn. Very strange and funny creatures were bustling around the room, looking for their seats, all wearing 3D glasses and carrying various snacks and drinks. Shh! Hissed a grumpy gargoyle, sitting in the front row. The movie is about to begin. But Little Pumpkin and Gerard wanted to explore more of the house. So they left the movie theater in silence through a door behind the big screen. As Little Pumpkin and Gerard stepped into the hallway again, Little Pumpkin found a flashlight and thought about a trick. Little Pumpkin set the flashlight up so the light shone through her mouth and eyes, lighting her up like a jack-o'-lantern. Boo! Gerard jumped and screamed. Then Gerard ran away. Little Pumpkin was suddenly all alone in the huge haunted mansion. What should she do now? She believed she was a big pumpkin, and big pumpkins weren't afraid, right? It was time to continue the rest of the tour by herself. Little Pumpkin slowly climbed the stairs to a large open space that was too dark to see. From behind her, a voice said, "Welcome to Bat Belfry." A vampire stepped out of the shadows, and a flutter of bats flew down from the ceiling to greet him. Little Pumpkin's heart
beat very fast. Things felt scarier without Gerard nearby. So nice to meet you, she stuttered. But I think I have to go. Little Pumpkin looked back at the staircase, where she saw that out of nowhere a dozen spiders were dropping down right in front of her. Don't leave just yet, said the vampire. Not before you hear my boo! Wahahaha! Ah! Yelled Little Pumpkin, and that was enough for her. She rolled down the stairs, through the house, out the door, and straight to the big oak tree. She swung open the door and leaped through, hoping with all her heart that it would take her home. And it did. She was back outside the steps of the porch of her house. Little Pumpkin? It was a familiar voice that reminded her of the monster Gerard, but she knew at once it was her daddy. Daddy! She ran to give him a hug. She gave her mommy a hug too. It looks like you're feeling better, said Mommy, who offered her a freshly made maple chocolate cluster. I am, said Little Pumpkin, munching the cluster. She thought about the vampire and the bats and the spiders. A shiver ran through her. She was so happy to be home. Then she thought about the look on Gerard's face when she scared him and how he ran away. There was a question she wanted to ask her parents. Are you mad at me for shouting before? Did it make you want to run away from me? We didn't like it when you did that, said Mommy, but we're not mad. We love you no matter what. That's right, said Daddy. No matter how big you grow or how grumpy you might be, Daddy winked at Little Pumpkin. We're always right here for you. Do you still want to read a spooky Halloween book? Asked Mommy. Yes, said Little Pumpkin, but only if you remember Halloween rule number 3. Stay close to me. Of course, said Daddy and Mommy. So they cuddled in together to read and enjoy a happy Halloween.
Big Pumpkin by Erica Silverman, illustrated by S.D. Schindler. Once there was a witch who wanted to make pumpkin pie. So she planted a pumpkin seed. She weeded and watered, and after a while, a sprout poked through. And then a pumpkin grew. And it grew, and it grew, and then it grew some more. Soon, Halloween was just hours away. The witch thought about pumpkin pie and bent down to take her pumpkin off the vine. Well, she pulled and she tugged and she pulled. First, she pulled hard, and then she pulled harder. But that pumpkin just sat. Drat, said the witch. Just then, along came a ghost. Big Pumpkin, said the ghost. It's big and it's mine, but it's stuck on the vine, and Halloween's just hours away, said the witch, and she kicked that pumpkin. I am bigger than you and stronger too, boasted the ghost. Let me try. Said the witch, but she thought about pumpkin pie. and stepped aside. The ghost bent down to take the pumpkin off the vine. Well, he pulled and he tugged and he pulled. First, he pulled hard, and then he pulled harder, but that pumpkin just sat. "Drat," said the ghost. Just then, along came a vampire. "Big pumpkin," said the vampire. "It's big and it's mine, but it's stuck on the vine, and Halloween's just hours away," said the witch, and she kicked that pumpkin. "I am bigger than both of you, and stronger too," boasted the vampire. "Let me try." "Hm," said the witch. "Hm," said the ghost. But they thought about pumpkin pie and stepped aside. The vampire bent down to take the pumpkin off the vine. Well, he pulled and he tugged and he pulled. First, he pulled hard, and then he pulled harder, but that pumpkin just sat. "Drat," said the vampire. Just then, along came a mummy. "Big pumpkin," said the mummy. "It's big and it's mine, but it's stuck on the vine, and Halloween's just hours away," said the witch, and she kicked that pumpkin. "I am bigger than all of you, and stronger too," boasted the mummy. "Let me try." "Hm," said the witch. "Hm," said the ghost. "Hm," said the vampire. But they thought about pumpkin pie and stepped aside. The mummy bent down to take the pumpkin off the vine. Well, she pulled and she tugged and she pulled. First, she pulled hard, and then she pulled harder, but that pumpkin just sat. "Drat," said the mummy. Just then, along came a bat. "Big pumpkin," said the bat. The witch didn't say a word. She just looked at the ghost and rolled her eyes. The ghost looked at the vampire looked at the mummy. They all looked at the little bat, and they started to laugh. "I may not be big and I may not be strong," said the bat, "but I have an idea." And the bat told them what to do. "Hm," said the witch. "Hm," said the ghost. "Hm," said the vampire. "Hm," said the mummy. But they thought about pumpkin pie and bent down to take the pumpkin off the vine. "Ready, set, pull!" called the bat. The bat pulled the mummy pulled the vampire pulled the ghost pulled the witch, and the witch pulled the pumpkin. Well, they pulled, and they tugged, and they pulled. First, they pulled hard, and then they pulled harder, and snap! Off came the pumpkin. "Drat," said the witch. Whoosh! It flew, and it flew, and thud! It landed on top of a hill, and thump, bump, thump, bump, thump, bump, it bounced all the way down to the witch's house. And when it got to her door, that pumpkin just sat. "Hooray for the bat!" shouted the witch, and she hurried inside to make pumpkin pie. Said the ghost. "Have some more," said the witch. "Couldn't eat another bite," said the vampire. "Fun party," said the mummy. "Time to go," said the bat. "Drat," said the witch as she watched them all leave. Then she went right out and planted another pumpkin seed. From Seed to Pumpkin by Wendy Pfeffer, illustrated by James Graham Hale. When spring winds warm the earth, a farmer plants hundreds of pumpkin seeds. Every pumpkin seed can become a baby pumpkin plant. Underground, covered with dark, moist soil, the baby plants begin to grow. As the plants get bigger, the seeds crack open. Stems sprout up. Roots dig down. Inside the roots are tubes. Water travels up these tubes the way juice goes up a straw. In less than 2 weeks from planting time, green shoots poke up through the earth. These shoots grow into tiny seedlings. 2 leaves, called seed leaves, uncurl on each stem. They reach up toward the sun. Sunlight gives these leaves energy to make food. Like us, plants need food to grow. But green plants do not eat food as we do. Their leaves make it. To make food, plants need light, water, and air. Leaves catch the sunlight. Roots soak up rainwater. And little openings in the leaves let air in. Using energy from the sun, the leaves mix the air with water from the soil to make sugar. This feeds the plant. Soon, broad, prickly leaves with jagged edges unfold on the stems. The new leaves are rough and prickly, but the seed leaves are smooth and round. The seed leaves dry up. Now the new leaves make food for the pumpkin plant. Each pumpkin stem has many sets of tubes. 1 tube in each set takes water from the soil up to the leaves so they can make sugar. The other tube in each set sends food back down so the pumpkin can grow. The days grow warmer. The farmer tends the pumpkin patch to keep weeds out. Weeds take water from the soil. Pumpkin plants need that water to grow. Pumpkin plants don't stand up tall. As the stem grows longer, they sprawl all around the ground. Before long, twisted, tangled vines cover the pumpkin patch. Soon, flower buds appear on the vines. After each bud opens, its orange petals grow bigger and bigger. They look like bright orange umbrellas. During the heat of the day, the flowers close. They open again during the cool nights and early mornings. The bright orange flowers attract swarms of bees. The bees buzz about, carrying yellow pollen from the male flowers to the female flowers. Now pumpkins can grow. The petals wither away. Where the flowers bloomed, tiny hard fruits begin to grow. Hundreds of these cling to the vines. The days grow hot. All summer, the warm sun and the cool rain help the tiny fruits grow larger and larger. Soon, summer is over. The corn stalks next to the pumpkin patch turn brown. Leaves on trees turn red, orange, and yellow. Pumpkins change color too. As they ripen, they change from green to yellow, then to orange. In just 4 months, small, flat, white pumpkin seeds have grown into big, fat, orange pumpkins. The pumpkins are ripe and round, with lumps and bumps. They come in all sizes and shapes, and they're waiting in the autumn sun. Some pumpkins will be carved into jack-o'-lanterns for Halloween. Some will be baked into pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving. Colorful leaves turn brown. Winter winds begin to blow, and soon the trees are bare. The farmer looks out over the pumpkin patch, where only a few dead vines remain. But when spring winds warm the earth, once again he will plant hundreds of pumpkin seeds, and once again they will grow from seed to pumpkin. Little Boo by Stephen Wonderly, illustrated by Tim Zeltner. The wind blew, the leaves fell, and a tiny seed hid in the garden. Boo! The seed said to a leaf rolling by. You're not scary at all, the leaf said. A grub was burrowing in the soil nearby. Boo! Said the seed. I'm busy, said the grub. The seed sighed. It began to get cold. A snowflake fell close to the seed, then another and another. Boo, 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 the seed said. There's more of us than you, the snowflakes whispered back. Why would we be scared of you? Poor seed. It's not time for scaring, the wind said. Not yet. Be patient. You'll be scary soon enough. I want to be scary now, the seed said, trying to make himself big. Just wait, the wind whispered, carefully blowing soil over the seed to keep him from the cold. The seed sighed one last time and finally fell asleep. Boo, he said in his dream. It was a very long sleep, and when the seed awoke, the air was warm above him. He reached for it, reached and reached until he could feel it. Ah, the seed said, time to get back to scaring. The seed was growing into a tender little sprout. Boo, said the little sprout to an old boot, but the boot didn't say anything back. Boo, he said to a shovel, but the shovel was silent. Boo, said the little sprout to a watering can, but the watering can didn't say a word either. So the young little sprout decided to keep growing. The wind came by for a visit. "Boo!" said the sprout, who was now a little plant. He was proud of how big he had gotten. "Not today," said the wind, "but soon, soon." The little plant kept growing and sometimes tried to scare the bucket and the bees and a grasshopper. "Boo, boo, boo," he said, but none of them were even the least bit afraid. So the plant that began as a seed grew and grew and grew. Soon little orange flowers appeared. Flowers aren't very scary, he thought. But then the flowers fell away and little green fruit began to grow. They grew fast. "Can I boo now?" the plant asked the wind. "Not quite yet," the wind said. One round green fruit grew much bigger than the others, and then it turned orange. "A pumpkin!" "Boo!" the pumpkin said to the hands that picked it. But they weren't scared as they carried the pumpkin to the house. The wind shut the door behind them. "I'll be right here," the wind said. Darkness crept in above the trees. There was no moon. A single candlelight appeared in the night. "Boo!" said the pumpkin that was now a jack-o'-lantern. "Yow!" said the cat. "Good scaring," said the wind. "Do it again." "Boo!" said the jack-o'-lantern. "Ah!" screamed the goblins. "Woo-wee!" said the wind, whirling around the bare trees and stirring up the leaves. "What wonderful scaring!" "Thank you," said the jack-o'-lantern, who used to be only a seed. "Boo! Boo! Boo!" And the light from the jack-o'-lantern's grin flew over the trees and spread across the night. Pete the Cat, 5 Little Pumpkins by James Dean. Five little pumpkins sitting on a gate. The first one said, "Oh my, it's getting late." The second one said, "There are witches in the air." The third one said, "But we don't care." The fourth one said, "Let's run and run and run." The fifth one said, "I'm ready for some fun." Hoo-hoo went the wind, and out went the lights. And the 5 little pumpkins rolled out of sight. Happy Halloween! Pick a Pumpkin by Patricia Tote, illustrated by Jarvis. Pick a pumpkin from the patch. Tall and lean or short and fat, vivid orange, ghostly white, or speckled green might be just right. Pumpkin snugly in your arms, wheel a wagon through the farm. Stop for mugs of spicy punch, toffee apples, sweet to crunch. Homeward from the pumpkin patch, all your goodies stacked in back. Now, brush or wipe your pumpkin clean, rub it smooth and make it gleam. Find the perfect carving space, lined with papers just in case you make a mess. Next, gather other things you need, a bowl, a spoon for scooping seeds, a tool to trace a spooky face, and plastic saws for cutting shapes. Then, invite around a friend or two, form a pumpkin carving crew. Let grown-ups cut the top a bit, big enough for hands to fit. Reach down deep into the hole, grab the seeds and give a pull. Lumpy chunks, sticky strings, clumpy seeds, guts and things. With the spoon, scrape sides neatly, clean the inside out completely. Now all together. Carve the eyes, giant circles of surprise, small slits sleeping or one eye peeping, cross-eyed crazy, angry, lazy. And below those, make a nose, a triangle, a pinprick, a nose that grows from thin to thick. Under the nose is where the mouth goes. A kiss, a frown, a toothy grin, a zigzag gap cut long and thin, a smirk, a snarl, an eerie O, or pointy fangs all in a row. But wait! Before you light your new creation, first it's time for decorations. Cobwebs strung from post to post, rings of gauzy dancing ghosts, spiders, tombstones, dangling bats, skeletons and witches' hats. Now quick, slip on gear to trick or treat and grab a sack to hold your sweets. Lift your pumpkin up with pride. March it to a place outside. Set it safely on the ground and call the crew to gather round. Ask someone to strike a match. Watch, the candle's wick will catch. See it glow outside your door. Look, it's not a pumpkin anymore. It's a jack-o'-lantern. Its red-hot eyes will gaze and flicker. Its fiery grin will blaze and snicker to guard your house while you have fun. Happy Halloween, everyone! Pumpkin Jack. Written and illustrated by Will Hubble. When Tim carved his first pumpkin, it was fierce and funny and just perfect. A jack-o'-lantern this good deserved a name, so Tim gave it one. Jack. Long after the best trick-or-treat candy was eaten, Tim still kept Jack. At night, when a candle made Jack's face dance on the wall and filled the dark with warm pumpkin smells, Tim felt Jack was almost magic. Yet, too soon, the spell was broken. "This pumpkin is beginning to rot," announced Mom. "It's time to throw it out." Tim knew it was useless to argue. He carried Jack to the garden, which was filled with the brown ghosts of last summer's plants. A dead garden is better than a trash can, thought Tim. Still, it made him sad to leave Jack outside and alone. Whenever chores or play brought Tim to the garden, he looked at Jack. Every time, Jack was different. He became wrinkled, and his fierce smile began to look silly. Mold spread over Jack's bright orange skin. As the days turned colder, Jack grew flatter. Winter began. Soon Jack was hidden beneath snow, and Tim forgot about him. The cold, heavy jacket days came. Snowman and sliding days, indoor days, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Valentine's. When all these days had passed and the March winds melted the snow, Tim found Jack. There wasn't much left, just a faded and crumpled pumpkin skin, a stem, and a few seeds. Jack's Halloween magic was a distant memory now. Tim scraped a thin blanket of earth over the last bits of his pumpkin. "Goodbye, Jack," he whispered. When the spring turned barefoot warm, a tiny sprout appeared where Jack had been. Tim found it and guessed what it was. In the days that followed, Tim weeded and watered and watched the sprout. Slowly and steadily, the plant changed and grew. It branched and spread a web of vines over the ground, but no pumpkins appeared. The days turned hot. Flowers opened on the plant each morning, yellow stars that twisted shut forever in the afternoon. Still, there were no pumpkins. Finally, Tim found a little green ball growing behind a crumpled blossom. A pumpkin! Tim let out a whoop and ran to show his mom. By August, the plant had spilled onto the lawn. Tim's favorite game became pumpkin hunting. He carefully waded among the leaves, searching for green pumpkins like hidden treasures. School began again, and the days cooled. Tim had less time to visit the garden. When he did, the pumpkin plant seemed tired. There were few new leaves, and the old, tattered ones no longer hid the fat green pumpkins. Then, one October morning, Tim woke to see frost coating the garden. The frozen plants seemed changed to pale blue glass. After school, Tim discovered what the frost had done. The pumpkin plant's leaves were as limp as wet paper. It was dying. Tim searched among the withered leaves for the unripe pumpkins. He picked them and put them on the front porch, hoping for one more change. By Halloween, the pumpkins had ripened to bright orange. There were many, for the plant had been generous. Tim was generous too. He gave away all but one. From jack-o'-lantern to seed to pumpkin again, the circle was almost complete. Now it was time for Tim to do his part. He gave his pumpkin a face. It smiled at him in a fierce and funny way. Tim smiled too and said, "Welcome back, Jack." Pumpkin Soup by Helen Cooper. Deep in the woods, there's an old white cabin with pumpkins in the garden. There's a good smell of soup, and at night, with luck, you might see a bagpiping cat through the window, and a squirrel with a banjo, and a small singing duck. Pumpkin soup, the best you ever tasted, made by the cat who slices up the pumpkin, made by the squirrel who stirs in the water, made by the duck who scoops up a pipkin of salt and tips in just enough. They slurp their soup and play their song, then pop off to bed in a quilt stitched together by the cat, embroidered by the squirrel, and filled with fine feathers from the duck. And it's peaceful in the old white cabin. Everyone has his own job to do. Everyone is happy, or so it seems. "That's mine," squeaked the squirrel. "Stirring is my job. Give that back." "You're much too small," snapped the cat. "We'll cook the way we always have." But the duck held on tight until the squirrel tugged with all his might, and whoops, the spoon spun through the air and bopped the cat on the head. Then there was trouble, a horrible squabble, a row, a racket, a rumpus in the old white cabin. "I'm not staying here," wailed the duck. "You never let me help with anything." And he packed up a wheelbarrow, put on his hat, and waddled away. "You'll be back," stormed the cat, "after we've cleaned up." And the squirrel shook his spoon in the air, but the duck didn't come back. Not for breakfast, not even for lunch. "I'll find him," scoffed the cat. "He'll be hiding outside. I bet he's in the pumpkin patch." But the duck was not in the pumpkin patch. They could not find him anywhere. So they waited all that long afternoon. The cat watched the door, the squirrel paced the floor. "That duck will be sorry when he comes home," they muttered. But the duck didn't come home, not even at soup time. The soup wasn't tasty. They'd made it too salty. They didn't feel hungry anyway. They both sobbed over supper, and their tears dripped into the soup and made it even saltier. "We should have let him stir the soup," sniffled the squirrel. "He was only trying to help," wept the cat. "Let's go out and look for him." The cat and the squirrel were scared as they wandered down the path in the dark, dark woods. They feared for the duck, all alone with the trees and the foxes and the wolves and the witches and the bears. But they couldn't find him. On and on they trudged until they reached the edge of a steep, steep cliff. "Maybe he fell down that," wailed the cat. "I'll save him," squeaked the squirrel, and he scrambled down on a long, shaky rope. He searched all around on the ground, but he couldn't find the duck. Then the cat whispered in a sad little voice, "Duck might have found some better friends." "He might," sighed the squirrel. "Friends who let him help." And the more they thought about it, as they plodded back, the more they were sure they were right. But when they were almost home, they saw light shining from the old white cabin. "It's Duck!" they shrieked as they burst through the door. And the duck was so happy to see them. He was also very hungry, and though it was late, they thought they would all make some pumpkin soup. When the duck stirred, the cat and the squirrel didn't say a word, not even when the duck stirred the soup so fast that it slopped right out of the pot. Not even when the pot got burnt. Then the duck showed the squirrel how to measure out the salt, and the soup was still the best you ever tasted. So, once again, it was peaceful in the old white cabin. Until the duck said, "I think I'll play the bagpipes now." Splat the Cat and the Pumpkin Picking Plan, based on the creation of Rob Scotton. Autumn was one of Splat's favorite seasons. "I'll help you rake the leaves, Mom," Splat offered. "Thank you, Splat," Mom said. Splat was good at raking leaves. Seymour helped too. Soon they made a huge pile. Splat stared at the pile. Suddenly, he had a great idea. His tail wiggled wildly. Splat! Leaves went flying everywhere. Splat's mom sighed. "I have an idea, Splat," she said. "Why don't you go to Farmer Patch's pumpkin patch? You can pick out a pumpkin to decorate and put on our porch." Splat thought that sounded like a great idea. "I'll pick the most perfect pumpkin ever," he promised. Splat grabbed his wagon, and he and Seymour set off on their way. Splat loved Farmer Patch's pumpkin patch. There was so much to see and do. He saw a very scary scarecrow. He got lost in a hay bale maze. He tasted fresh apple and fish cider. Then Splat remembered he was supposed to pick out the perfect pumpkin. The perfect pumpkin should be big, orange, and round, he told Seymour. He found a pumpkin that was very round and very orange. "Too small," he announced. The next pumpkin was big and orange. "Not round enough," he told Seymour. Seymour found a big, round pumpkin. "Not orange enough," Splat said. Splat's tail wiggled wildly with worry. Would he ever find the perfect pumpkin? But then Splat spotted another pumpkin. It was round. It was orange. It was the biggest pumpkin in the place. "Perfect!" Splat cried. "Mom will love this one." But there was one problem. How was Splat going to get the pumpkin home? "This won't fit in my wagon," Splat said. "I know," he said. "I'll roll it." Splat rolled the pumpkin out of the gate. He rolled it on the road and down a hill. "Whoa!" Splat cried. Splat ran. The pumpkin rolled. The pumpkin wouldn't stop no matter what Splat did. "Help!" Splat cried. Wow! Splat could steer the runaway pumpkin with his feet. He steered over a bridge and in between cars and right through his front gate. Finally, the pumpkin stopped. Splat's mom smiled. "Oh, Splat, it's perfect," she said. "Well done." Splat smiled back. "It was no trouble," he said. "No trouble at all." Thomas and the Runaway Pumpkins. Illustrated by Richard Courtney. Created by Britt Allcroft. Autumn was a happy and busy season on the island of Sodor. It was time for the fall harvest. There were shiny red apples to pick. Farmers were busy bringing in the last sweet corn. And the fields were full of bright orange pumpkins of all sizes and shapes. Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends were being really useful. They took trucks loaded with crops from farms to the docks and to bustling markets all over Sodor. Halloween was just around the corner. But first, there would be something even more special, the annual Pumpkin Festival in Anofa. This year, there was a pumpkin growing contest. Who grew the biggest or roundest or funniest shaped pumpkin? There was a pumpkin carving contest too. There would be yummy pumpkin treats for everyone. Pies, breads, soups, puddings, cookies, and even pumpkin candies. There had been a bumper crop of really big pumpkins this year. The night before the festival, Sir Topham Hatt arrived at the sheds. "After you deliver tonight's mail," he said to Percy, "there's a special delivery for the Pumpkin Festival at Anofa." He pointed to 2 troublesome trucks loaded with the very biggest pumpkins. "Yes, sir," peeped Percy. After Percy had delivered the mail, the troublesome trucks giggled and wriggled. They were determined to cause confusion and delay. "Now," called the first one, just as Percy began to climb a bumpy, hilly bit of track. The troublesome trucks uncoupled themselves from the rest of the train and rolled back down the hill. Percy steamed on, with no idea that he'd left part of his delivery behind. Giggling with glee, the trucks finally came to a stop on an old siding hidden by some trees. They went happily to sleep. Percy headed toward Anofa. He puffed into the station just as the sun began to rise. Sir Topham Hatt and Lady Hat were there to greet him. "Percy, where are all the pumpkins?" cried Sir Topham Hatt. "Oh, no," Percy peeped. "The trucks must have come loose along the way." Just then, Thomas arrived with 2 coaches full of festival goers and their baskets of goodies. "Thomas, please go and look for my runaway pumpkins," Percy peeped. "You'll have to find them soon," Sir Topham Hatt said. "Without the pumpkins, the festival can't go as planned." Thomas chuffed off. "I'll try to think like a troublesome truck," he said to himself, as he retraced Percy's route to the sheds. He tried to imagine where 2 trucks loaded with orange pumpkins would hide, and how they could have gotten there without an engine. And just as Thomas came down that bumpy hill in the opposite direction, a thought flew into his funnel. "That's it," he whistled. "If those pesky, troublesome trucks uncoupled themselves on a hill, they would roll back down really fast. I'll follow this track and see where it leads." Soon enough, Thomas found the old siding in the trees, and there were the trucks, still fast asleep. Thomas whistled to wake them. "Time to get up, you 2, he peeped. "We're off to Anofa before you can cause any more mischief." Percy was relieved and happy when Thomas returned with the pumpkins. Sir Topham Hatt was pleased that the festival could start right on time. "You saved the day, Thomas," Percy said to his friend. "Thank you for your help." The pumpkin carving contest was the best in years, and the winning design looked just like Thomas. "Thomas has been a really useful engine," Sir Topham Hatt said. The other engines peeped and whistled while everyone clapped. "Thomas is our hero!" the children cheered. "And with that great big pumpkin head, he can be the hero of Halloween too," James said with a smile. Spookly the Square Pumpkin, Colors, written by Joe Troiano, illustrated by Nan Brooks. Red. This little pumpkin is red and fat. Blue. This silly pumpkin is blue and flat. Yellow. This happy fellow is yellow and tall. Green. This jumping pumpkin is green and small. Pink. This big pink one is on its side. Brown. This bright brown one is nice and wide. Purple. This pretty purple pumpkin is jumping in the air. Orange. And don't forget Spookly. He's orange and square. So many pumpkins, and none of them match. What wonderful colors in Spookly's pumpkin patch. Let's practice counting on the other side. Spookly the Square Pumpkin, numbers. 1. One pumpkin named Spookly waving hello. 2. 2 pumpkins having fun growing in a row. 3. 3 silly pumpkins playing peekaboo. 4. 4 friendly pumpkins smiling back at you. 5. 5 sleepy pumpkins taking a nap. 6. 6 happy pumpkins clapping. Clap, clap, clap. 7. 7 shy pumpkins hiding in the patch. 8 wacky pumpkins whose colors don't match. 9 climbing pumpkins piled up high. 10 friendly pumpkins waving goodbye. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. See you later, alligator. The Legend of Spookly the Square Pumpkin. Written by Joe Troiano. Illustrated by Susan Banta. One day in the pumpkin patch, the strangest little pumpkin hatched. Spookly wasn't like his friends. Where they had curves, he had ends. Spookly was different. He was odd. He was rare. Spookly the pumpkin wasn't round. He was square. While the round pumpkins had fun rolling along, poor Spookly sat there shaped all wrong. He tried and tried with all his might, but he couldn't budge. He just sat tight. The other pumpkins teased him because he was square. Spookly wished he was round and could roll everywhere. That is, until one night when they all discovered it's fine to be round when the weather is fair, but there are times it's better to be a square. Halloween was just a day away when a mighty storm blew across the bay. It tossed the round pumpkins to and fro. It snapped their vines, then off they'd go, bouncing left, slamming right, banging, bashing, what a sight! Spookly sat there, filled with fright, but glad to be a square that night. Suddenly, the fence gave way. 3 pumpkins rolled out and into the bay. Spookly knew what must be done. It was up to him. He was the one. He teetered, he tottered, he tipped, he tried, and finally flipped. He was on his side. Again he tipped, again he flopped, again he flipped, and then he stopped. Right in the gap where the fence had snapped, he blocked the way. The hole was capped. All the pumpkins shouted, "Hooray!" Spookly the square pumpkin had saved the day. Then a pumpkin hit him with a whack. He thought his shell would start to crack. Then another one hit him with a thump, and another one with a smack. Then one by one, a ton of pumpkins piled on the stack. With a bang and a bash and a crunch and a crash, and then it all went black. At dawn, when the storm had stopped, the farmer came out and checked his crop. He picked his pumpkins up, one by one, and laid them out in the warm, dry sun. And when the last was moved away, the farmer could see what had saved the day. An odd-shaped pumpkin, short and dense, was wedged against the broken fence. Its shell was bruised, its stem was too. But there was brave little Spookly sitting straight and strong and true. Right then and there the farmer knew of all the seeds he'd ever sown. Spooklys were the most special that had ever grown. And the next year, when it was time to sow, he sowed those seeds in every row. He watered and weeded and watched them grow. And oh, that morning about mid-June, when the pumpkin patch began to bloom, there were tiny pumpkins everywhere, hundreds and hundreds, most of them square. But some were cubes and some rectangular. Some were flat and others triangular. There was a bed of bright red ones and 2 rows of blue. There were polka dot pumpkins and rainbow ones too. There were thousands of colors and hundreds of shapes. Oh, what a garden variety makes! Now, every year on Halloween, Spookly's patch is quite a scene. People come from far and near to see what wonders grew that year. They stop, they gawk, they gaze, they stare. Then they pick a pumpkin that's round, triangular, or perfectly square. Now you know the story of how Spookly grew. Maybe someday you'll tell someone too, and they'll go tell someone who'll go tell another, and maybe one day we all will discover you can't judge a book or a pumpkin by its cover. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe. See you later, alligator.
In the garden, round and wide, pumpkins grow with pride inside. Orange, yellow, big and small, rolling, bouncing, love them all. They're pumpkins, pumpkins on parade, in the sun and in the shade. Round and happy, fat and fun, pumpkin time for everyone. Carve a face with eyes and nose, give it hair or funny clothes. Light it up with a candle bright, glowing gently through the night. They're pumpkins, pumpkins on parade, in the sun and in the shade. Round and happy, fat and fun, pumpkin time for everyone. Make a pie or pumpkin bread, yummy treats for all to spread. Paint them blue or paint them green, silliest pumpkins you've ever seen.